So I'm going to start out by cooking up this chicken breast that I've had out. We started out with a little beef liver. So are all your dietary pursuits, okay, all your dietary pursuits should be based on protein as a standalone, right? Protein as a standalone should be the first thing you eat, the first thing that you focus on. That everything is based around protein. Yeah, I'm even breaking off some of this fat because I just don't even, I'm trying to stay as low fat as possible. So we're going for an ultra low fat focus here. Ultra low fat. So you got chicken breast. You started out with just protein powder and coffee. Then had a second cup of coffee. Yeah, there's a lot of fat in this Walmart chicken. Turn that down a little bit. The fat doesn't look normal, but it's really not that much fat. I'm not going to get all paranoid about it, but I want to keep it as low as possible. It's going to be a tough month. Or maybe it won't be. This is the first month where I'm not going to be able to cover any of my expenses. And the crazy thing is that this is the month where I'm going to be going through and getting the most amazing results. And it's what it takes. I'm laser focused, actually. I'm more laser focused than all the people that you watch that are doing steroids and got their audiences through nefarious purposes and means. And you would see that. You would see that it's the difference. You go, okay, wow, people who really are natural, yeah, really natural, not quasi-natural, not said to be natural, but actually natural. And I just started training again. I've been really turned off by the whole thing, but it's who I am. It's a lifestyle. It's what I am, right? And without it, I've always liked to consider that there's something more to life. There's more to, right? But it really is at the basis of what life is. What the meaning of life is it begins with the breath, it begins with the movement, it begins with the foundational, fundamental aspect of who and what we are. And people who don't have that are kidding themselves, they're tricking themselves. So we're going to make some chicken, and then we're going to gauge if we want to eat carbohydrates and what those carbohydrates would do. So the first thing you want to focus on is if you require glycogen for your muscle movement. So the first thing you've got to do is adequately eat enough protein to where you're going to invariably go into a little bit of gluconeogenesis. In my opinion, gluconeogenesis is at the base and drives every movement. Everything that you do is based around amino acids, protein, and keeping an ample amount. And there are times when you need to go up into a higher level and you're just taking in protein. And it's all based on a fluidness, right? And a lot of people lose that perspective. They lose that base. They lose the base understanding of listening to themselves and following an intuitive metabolic prompt. It's a subtle communication. So that'll be cooking for a little while there. And we're just gonna let it cook. And I'm gonna go back into my wok. I'm gonna do a little bit of a walk while I'm cooking up the chicken. This is boring. This isn't burpees. This isn't jumping around. This isn't a 31-year-old guy that says he was dying of this or dying of that, jumping around. It's a 55 going on 56-year-old guy who was obese just last year, right? Lost 90 pounds. Really tried to integrate in some of the things that would allow me, him, third person, to be able to do with other people, only to realize that, so there's an old saying that I said when I was a top level trainer working through Equinox, 24-hour fitness, way back in the day. Bally's, had my own things going, had over 20 something certifications and had a real handle on this, where I realized that protein was at the heart of every single diet. And then this led me into orthomolecular science that was based on what Linus Pauling comes up with, which is everything's based on amino acid reactions, and to take in those synergistic nutrients such as vitamin C, vitamin B complex, B6, B12 specifically, but all the vitamin Bs need to be present, along with magnesium is probably even more important than vitamin C. And then you get into this magnesium calcium balance and you start to see how electrolytes work, where you have sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and everything's sort of building on this platform with minerals and nutrients, right? So there's a really great book called Heal with Amino Acids and Nutrients by Billy J. Saley, who's not even on the orthomolecular.org website. When you go in and you use that, but I'm not saying don't use it because of this, but I find it very odd that somebody that would be so pivotal, bringing forth and ushering, coining the phrase, post-traumatic stress disorder, Billy J. Saley was instrumental, just as instrumental as Candace Pert and GABA aminobutyric acid, GABA, right? You know how important that is. If you've ever taken it or taken SAMe or anything else, well, your body can produce these, but the GLUT receptors, the glutamine, right? They found that high levels of glutamine, your cancer cells can actually thrive and live off glutamine alone. This is huge because glutamine is the most dominant amino acid in your body. And then when you look at glycine, right, and proline, that's what collagen is made out of. It's made out of these trifold envelopes, right? So glycine is the simplest amino acid that there is. It tastes like sugar. You open up a glycine capsule, it tastes like sugar, right? Proline is one of those that builds you up, just like cysteine or cysteine, however you want to pronounce it. But with the presence of C, becomes more pronounced, builds up your hair, your skin, right? So that'll be cooking for a little while. We're going to leave that on. So begin with protein. Don't be afraid of something like a chicken and rice bridge diet. I would even call it a diet. It's not a diet if you're not staying on it for long periods of time. And you have to get into understanding how Olympic athletes stylize their training programs, or their training programs are stylized for them by strength and conditioning coaches through micro, meso, and macro cycles. The macro cycles are these year-long, and really these 4-year-long cycles where it's like, these are the norms, these are the standards, and this is what we expect to see you do, right? And we're going to supply you with exercise therapists, massage therapists, psychologists, right? I mean, nutritional therapists, backup nutritional therapists, nutritionists, sports and conditioning coaches. And when you realize that you have access to all of this and that you have to just ask the right questions, and so the right questions begin with a behavior module. And I have trained people on a very elite level. Okay, it's been some time, but I was able to take a lot and integrate a lot of these training methods to myself. And it was insane because I would ask myself, well, I'm not running these races. I'm not going to be like I'm training somebody for the half Ironman or the Beta Breakers, you know, or a myriad of different competitions right across from Stanford University there. Football players, baseball, volleyball, swimmers, you name it. People riding in dressage, right? Where you begin to see the actions, the anatomical actions, the biomechanical actions that they're going through, but you have to also understand the time under tension and what the energy expenditure is going to be at the base, right? And without carbohydrates, you're going to fail. And so what's happened in society, the real epidemic, you could say, obviously COVID tied into this, but the mass manipulation was to get people eating contrary to their immune system, strengthening and bolstering. That I highly recommend going on Dr. John Campbell from the UK. He's got like 3 or 4 million subscribers already, but it's great because he's not a conspiracy theorist. He's looking at this and he's looking at it in a practical aspect, and he's going, there's a lot more morbidity going on here. And it seemed to occur around the same time, right, as the advent of all these COVID administrations. We'll just leave it at that. And you get into something that's extremely assaultive, but our bodies are so good at responding. My uncle just passed away a month and a half ago. That's how I got this suspension trainer. I was never going to buy another one as long as I lived. I have owned so many of them, and I have sold so many of them that I was just done with it. You know, I was done with it. And this came to me and I'm like, I'm not going to sell this. I'm going to see this as a harbinger for something greater. And I'm really going to use this for everything. So today I will be, that's what I'm doing right now is I've gone for my 2.5 hour walk and I'm going into, so I really like to cook things. And I like to use a meat thermometer. I highly recommend it. I think bringing it up to about 170, 180, but that's why I break these up into small pieces. And then I'll eat this. I'm going to eat probably, I think I have about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds there of chicken. I'm going to eat about half of that. And then I'm going to think about whether or not I want to make a little rice before I do a training. I'm already feeling, I'm gauging that I don't have the energy to really go in to a great training session. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the walking, the protein, as a first out general guide to how much energy I'm going to need for my training. And I know that if I'm to follow the basic construct, that is, if you go to moderate, so you use that 0.45 times your body weight in pounds, right? And then you base about 70% of that caloric intake. So if I go 0.45 times my body weight in pounds, times 24 hours, that'll give me my kilograms in mass, and then it will give me my resting energy expenditure. That will put me at about 185 pounds, up around a couple thousand calories, okay? We're not gonna squabble. 1950, somewhere around there. Now, because I'm active and I do more than a moderate amount of exercise, you wanna add anywhere between 20 and 60%, believe it or not, back on that number. So we'll go for something in the middle and say at 40%, that would give me an extra 800 calories. So I'd be right around 2,800 calories. If I'm really pushing it, right, I might want to, so then what we do, just so I'm not going off on the rails here, off the rails, about 70% of those calories should be, no, they're going to say 65% of those calories should be carbohydrates. Yeah. From a glycolytic sense, from a pure perspective of what needs to be replaced, how the muscle cells are going to hypertrophically, and that's what we're talking about, fuller muscle bellies, fuller muscles, right? And honestly, I could eat for probably 3 days straight, and I'm only not even into the second day, and I haven't had any carbohydrates. So I've walked 2-3 hours. But the reason that you want to walk and deplete is that you are training this mechanism, right? This is how you burn away and get more efficient at glycolysis, and how you get to the point where you start to build up those enzymes and build a relationship. And you want to do this quick, and this is all mediated through exercise. Extremely important to do. But when I say build up a relationship, it's not Pluchik's wheel, it's not an emotional thing. The problem that we got into originally that fucked us all up, and they did it to us, is that we got all these emotional cues and responses from food because we were missing so many things. My assertion is that emotions should be seen on a more physiological scale. And I think that a lot of the clients that I've had in the past would 100% agree with me on this. And from an athletic standpoint, you start to gauge your performance. And initially, if you're not any longer performing for a specific venture, you're not going to compete in a 10K, you're not going to go for a marathon run, you're not going to, do a time trial or, or spend time on a rowing machine or do any sort of rowing exercises, you're not competing. Well, you get down to the fact that, do I have goals anymore, right? And a lot of times people are confronted with, I'm not superficial. I'm not going to worry about this like some aesthetic freak. And what they end up doing is they get fat. They're going, you know what? I'm eating based on brain power. And those are a lot of times the first people who cheat. They start to use PEDs way before they should have. Way before they should have ever touched PEDs. They touch those PEDs. And it really fucks them up. Because it's really hard to get back to a place of congruency at that point. Begins with protein. It begins with a walk. Then it gets into physiological, actionable movements, which my workouts, because I was on 35 days of strict carnivore and lost a good amount of fat. And the crazy thing was, because I've been on trimethylglycine and doing everything right, eating portions of beef liver, keeping my heme iron up, keeping my copper levels up, keeping my vitamin A up, because I was sticking with all those constants, right? I'm not low in anything. So I can only be honest with myself now, after knowing that I've been eating this way for months at a time, exercising for months now, that I'm in a place where nothing is going to go wrong. I've solidified and gotten it down. And YouTube's become a place where we're trying to talk to the adults, and the children are still in the room. And sometimes the children are the 60-year-old immature shitbags. And other times, the children are not the intellectual thinkers. That there's a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old out there that's actually intellectual. that is actually looking for markers, biochemical markers. Yeah, I don't cheat. Most of the people that you think are natural, most of the people that you think are doing things based on principle, they're not. That's very rare. We'll be cooking that chicken. And they'll be back. But somebody left. Oh, there is some. Somebody says, hi, hello. You look like that, yeah. I look like this. I'm 56 years old and I'm shredded, fat boy. I guarantee you're in your mom's basement home eating Cheetos. Are you done? No, I'm not done. I'm far from done, Marcos. What, you making chicken? And I'm trying to teach people how to eat because nobody else is. And it begins with protein. Don't be afraid of protein. What everybody's talking about is they're saying that protein powder spikes your insulin. And the thing is that once you spike that insulin and all you have is protein, it's then fed into your cell and it's kicking off what's called gluconeogenesis. That's when your metabolism is kicking up. It's kicking up cortisol. Everything kicks up cortisol. Breathing kicks up cortisol. Right? You want to amp it up. It's your body's ability to proact to any environmental situation. So to get your metabolism back in order, and it doesn't fucking matter what I look like. I've been a nutritional and wellness counselor. I've had multiple certifications in nutrition. I've been a top level trainer. It doesn't matter if I weigh 800 pounds. I've done thousands of training sessions and I've knocked 100 pounds off myself seemingly overnight. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't have to supplicate and be like some steroid head at 56 years old. I already did it, boy. I did it. Over and over again. The fact that I'm even going and I weigh 185 pounds or almost 6'1", at 56 years old, you should have respect, but you don't. Because you've never gone through it yourself. You've never done it. And I'm trying to teach you, even you, I'm trying to teach you how to do it. And it begins with protein. It begins with lean protein. This is what everyone is trying to fuck you up on with the sugar diet. Even, to some extent, carnivore, ketosis. It's fucking you up. Because it's making you think that you have to live in a very limited way where you have no energy. So get the rice out. The first thing that I would recommend doing is going on a chicken and rice diet and then figuring out. So if you only have vegetables available to you at that point, you probably want to add in at least broccoli or spinach. And if you can, the much more nutritional thing to do is to take in a little tiny bit of beef liver every day. And no, I'm not doing growth hormone for you, for views. I already did that. I was one of the first people on YouTube and I erased all my content. I had 350 videos and I erased it all. I didn't like the attention that I was getting back in 2011, 2012. Particularly, I think things are changing now to where people are searching for the truth. I'm giving you the truth. You can't avoid gluconeogenesis. You have to embrace it. You can't avoid sin and you can't avoid corrupt people. So you really have to stay protective in yourself with purity. And that means you're not hanging out with people. And when you death scroll and you think you're not being watched, they're very aware of you. They're very aware of you. And when we say they, I don't know. Where do you want to look? Operation Gladio? How far are you willing to go into this? How informed are you? So one of the really cool things is like the Y files is bringing to a lot of people this esoteric and arcane knowledge without being all woo-woo and frou-frou about it. But yeah, I look like this because I'm wearing baggy ass clothes and I'm not braggy. I'm not braggy. And it's healthy actually to keep a little bit on. But I've shown it. If you want to look back at my videos, I got completely shredded last year just off carnivore alone. And carnivore will do it. But when you do standalone diets, where you're just focusing on one substrate, in other words, the thing that is talked around and what nutritionists will confuse you about, okay, is that you can add fat and carbohydrates into the same diet. From a natural perspective, that doesn't work. Unless you're a highly competitive athlete, to where you have to slow down the metabolic processing of one or the other. And then, even then, you get into fiber and you get into essential fatty acids. Right? Start playing with that a little bit. Kind of a Mediterranean look at nutrition, which works. It works really well. But those are people who can't live off of just like what I'm making, and I'll probably do some rice in a minute or two. Let's cut that open and see what that's all about. That's definitely done. I overcook chicken. I overcook it on purpose. I'm paranoid about it. Yeah, like that piece. That still had a little bit in there that. Yeah, so that's all pretty good. So I'll just leave that in the pan and let it do its thing. And the best modality for exercise is the suspension trainer. You can stack and you can add in super bands, power bands. You can add in kettlebells. You can add in weights. You can add in sprints and running, things like that. You don't have to have a lot of equipment. I'm not a burpee person. I'm not going to supplicate to burpees. I think burpees actually fuck people up. And they're too sagittal. And you'll see that older people who do burpees get really fucked up. Burpees are not a good exercise modality to stick with. They don't equal anything good, burpees. Put that over and just, that'll stay hot for a little while. You got it turned off and we are just cooking the shit out of it. So back in the day, a lot of people that were involved in bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, they would eat rice like it's going out of style. They would eat barley. They would eat grains. And most people have a hard time limiting their calorie intake. Like the amount that they have to eat is way more than what they're able to metabolize. So I think I'm gonna make some rice because I'm on like a rice and chicken diet. And I'm still trying to build up my my glycogen reserves. I'm trying to keep my glycogen up. So that's how you keep the muscle bellies the muscle bellies up. So we're gonna pour out some rice. There's about 1 cup. There's about 2 cups. Yeah, it's probably about 2.5 cups there. And I've got a 20-pound bag of rice over here. And most people are eating feel-good foods. They don't ever get to a place where they've ever even built a relationship up with the base constituents of what they need. In most of the world, to say to eat is actually is the same thing as to say with rice. It means exactly the same thing. So we're going to turn that on. Oh, shit. Yeah, it's Sunday. Yeah, so we cooked the chicken. We're gonna just let that sit and see how it tastes. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's all white, no pink. We just put a little salt on that, and we're back in it. And this is what most people should be doing again. Walking, eating chicken, taking in rice, working out on the suspension trainer. And if you only have healthy options around, that's all you will ever do. So, like if the only fat that you have around is olive oil and that's all you ever do, how unhealthy do you think you're going to get? You have to start keeping only options around that are healthy. And I still have about 50 eggs in here that I'm not going to be eating this week. I've got fucking 20 plus pounds of chicken altogether. Maybe 25 pounds of chicken. Most of it's like this, it's skinless, boneless chicken. Still got a good pound of protein powder, which I haven't been doing it all this month. It's been like a month and a half. I think I did it once or twice in that time, in about a month and a half, but that's at most. Yeah, a lot of kids don't understand karma yet. They can't rationalize why bad things are happening to them. And they say really stupid, off-putting things. But it only brings down people as a whole. Start thinking intelligent things. Only speak when it's necessary, and what you'll find is that's what the intelligent people are doing. If they don't have anything to say, if they realize that their opinion is a guarded opinion based on a lack of personal value, and that as they vitriolically say things to other people, they're only displaying their level of toxicity, that's an epidemic. Something just made a weird sound.